Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. And today I'm having steamed vegetables and grilled chicken. All right, let's talk about training more than 4 days a week. Most of you know that I ascribe to the conjugate system of training. That's what I've been over to for years. I originally started there, went away from it at a midpoint in my YouTube, and then a few years later came back to it. It's what I use. It's what most of my clients are coached on. And that system itself generally includes 4 days of primary training per week. And even more for novices, if they're not doing just cookie cutter type training, full body, I tend to endorse a 4 day upper lower. Just like what the conjugate is, just not necessarily using the conjugate method yet. And I've done a lot of videos in the past kind of breaking down effective training volume and have pointed out why this works, what the data is. And the idea is that exceeding about 10 sets per muscle group, and we've discussed how we define a set, right? Because some movements are not a full set for an exercise, right? Bench press is not a full set for your triceps, for example. Rows are not a full set for your biceps. They're half sets. Speed work can oftentimes be counted as half sets, so on and so forth. So kind of looked at it, and the data generally shows that when hypertrophy studies are done on non-novice lifters, exceeding about 10 quality work sets, but only if they're quality work sets, in a training session seems to produce less muscle growth. We also generally postulate that more than about 20 sets per week total per muscle group, we stop getting muscle growth. And for a lot of people, that threshold is lower. Keeping in mind, some of those studies found optimal growth in some people with less. Again, looking at near limit sets. And since we can easily do that on a 4 day upper lower, and then our joints and things are not being beat up the rest of the week, it works out really, really well. We can train every muscle group twice a week. We can do something like 6 to 10 sets per muscle group. And again, some people that are around that 12 set mark per week is where they're going to see optimal muscle growth. And a lot of people will say things like, well, what can I do to speed up recovery? What if I have a perfect lifestyle? Can I exceed this? If I up the dose, can I exceed this? It's really asking the wrong question because the evidence says no. We could postulate that, but here's the other thing. Not everyone benefits from going even that high. Let's come back over to the other point. There were some muscles in some people in some of these studies that 5 sets produced maximum muscle growth for them. 5 really hard sets, either close to failure or to failure, for some muscles produced maximum muscle growth. So people are over here talking about, well, can I exceed that? It's like, why don't you focus on progressing on the sets you are doing? Why aren't you pushing them to their limit? All right. And we may have muscles that will exceed that on. I certainly do. There are muscles that need extra work. But they shouldn't be most of the muscles. Might I suggest that we start looking at if someone has the recovery, if they have the free time, all of these things to train more, why don't we step away from the weight training? We know that the weight training, if anything, is limited by your conditioning. And what is it they have found working with athletes? What if you listen to Louis Simmons, listen to Matt Winning? What will they tell you? That you need to be in shape to get truly strong, that it helps. Why does it help? It helps with your ability to sustain a workload through a training session. If you have good conditioning, good general physical preparedness, you can maintain your performance set to set better for more total sets. Might I postulate that this is one of the reasons why we see variation between that 10 to 20 set range for maximum growth per week for people? Why is it 10 to 12 for some people and 19 to 20 for others? Is it because they're in better shape? It's because they recover better between sets. Is it because they recover better after training? I think that it is. And I think it makes sense that that's the case. Because again, what does the research show on hypertrophy? That if you're if you're taking shorter breaks in performance, drop set to set, you gain less muscle. This is why longer breaks produce more muscle growth. But no matter how long you're taking, there comes a threshold to where performance declines. If you are in better shape, you can benefit from more volume in a training session. In other words, you can actually utilize it more effectively for better growth, better recovery, if you're in shape. So what should you be doing? You should be doing general physical preparedness. You should be doing restoration work. If you need anything outside of those 4 sessions per week, you don't need to be doing more training itself directly as far as trying to stimulate hypertrophy or strength. You need to be working on your conditioning. What's that for me? I drag a sled. That's my main GPP these days. I mean, I do ruck a backpack. I do ruck a backpack several times a week. But for me, it's sled dragging. And I'm up to a point where I sled drag almost every day. I would like to say every day, but I occasionally miss. You know, I might miss 2 days in a week. I might go 20 days without missing a day, but I drag a sled. GPP is strength-based conditioning, general physical preparedness. You could be flipping a tire. You could be doing barbell complexes, pushing a sled or a prowler, dragging a sled, loaded carries, right? This is what we're talking about. So it gets you into shape. It will help you. It will help you with the training. About restoration work. Well, what about your weakest body? Let's say your triceps are a major weak link for you. Could it be that your triceps need more work capacity, better tendon health, everything else? Maybe on some of your off days you could be doing really high rep band press downs. They're not going to add a lot of hypertrophy. They might, but what are they doing? They're training the muscle to recover better so that your triceps can handle more volume in a training session. But we're not really training with this other stuff. It's all slightly more endurance based. It's conditioning work. Same thing, your low back. You could be doing some lighted band good mornings. You could be doing reverse hypers. If your low back lacks recovery and work capacity, you should be doing that stuff on your off days for it so that you can handle more good morning, more speed pulls, more hip hinging on your training days. Okay? If you want more training, realistically, it's just not that hard to reach your ideal volumes in 4 days a week of training. It just isn't. And if people want more, then they probably need to get into better shape so that they can even benefit from doing more work. Because if you're not in shape, even trying to do more than about 6 sets per muscle twice a week, you're probably not going to see real benefits from it. But if you're in better shape, you will. You can push more towards that higher volume side. It's about allocating your resources correctly, though. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.